friends, it's Nancy, and I finished this patchwork and lace covered journal. Give you some measurements here. So it is 5 3/4 by 8.5, and across the spine about 2 1/4. So it has a rounded hollow back spine and a total of 7 signatures. So let me just remove this ribbon so you can take another look at this cover. So I used coordinating quilting fabrics, quilt shop quality fabrics, to make a patchwork, and I added some vintage lace and doilies, some embroidery, some buttons, some vintage miniature buttons, and some applique. Lots of goodies there. It's a hardcover, so I've used a gutted hardback cover novel to support the fabric. And when you open it up, you'll see that I also have a fabric covered inside, both front and back. This is a vintage tatted doily. Inside, I've made this little tag. And on the front cover, or the front page, let me just bring it a little closer. I created this little image. Believe me, the picture that was originally in this frame, not attractive. Some scary guy. Anyway, so I roughed it up a bit and added some ink and gave the little cherubs some definition by adding a little ink, and then framed it all out with fabric, applique, lace, some more. There's some tatting, and this is tea-dyed paper that I finished with plastic lace to give it this lacy look. You'll see that better on the next page turn. Did a little bit of stamping. This is a piece of braille paper, and I've added a tab with a vintage button and some lace that was cut from a handkerchief. It's tea-dyed book page. This is from a diary from 1929, and I've added this little tag that has a vintage stamp that can be removed, and it has a woman picking tea. So I didn't start out this journal to have a tea theme. It just happened that way. This is a page from a very old copy of Mrs. Beeton's household management book, and this talks about breakfast and tea china. And it was just a plate that was in the book. I took it out, trimmed it down a bit, and goes right in there. Here's some paper from a notebook, some line paper, and it says, a cup of tea warms the soul like a good friend. Maybe you can't see that. You'll just have to trust me on it. Here's a page from a book, and it shows some birds having tea. These folks are having tea as well. Made this little tea bag by trimming out some fabric covered paper, and I added a paper clip. And inside, this is a page from a book, and it's a reproduction of an advertisement for a grocery store in Vienna, Ontario. Some more light, lots of textiles, lots of lace, and oh, my pin came undone. So I've added this little silver key charm. Why don't you want to close? And of course I can't see. There we go. Now it's closed. Little silver key. some stamping, some more tea-dyed paper that I've dried out in the sunshine with plastic lace on top. Here's a page from a book about Victorian flowers. This blue lace here was cut from a handkerchief. This tab has another vintage button and a little tatted motif. Just showing you the texture of that button. This is vintage ledger paper, and I made a little pocket here, added some crocheted lace, and made this big journal card. It has crocheted lace, some vintage textile, and lots of room for journaling. Tea-dyed, oh no, sorry. This is another page from Mrs. Beaton's Household Management, and it's about breakfasts, luncheons, dinners, teas, and suppers. This is a tea-dyed book page. This is just some black paper that I thought would be good for photographs. Here is some pretty eyelet lace stitched onto this tea-dyed book page. Mrs. Beaton's book. This fussy cut came from a book about China, and another journaling card. We have some eyelet lace here. And this, I've attached this little chain of pearls here with a safety pin. And again, we've got tea-dyed paper and some stamping. This is from a vintage book about flowers of the Holy Land. Another vintage button on a tab. Some tea-dyed manuscript paper. Book page. This came from a vintage book about it's a 5 Roses flower cake or cookbook. This is a letter that was written on airmail envelope. This came from a reproduction catalog. So it has pictures of cups. Some more tatted lace here. Here's a fabric ruffle. Another image from that Flowers of the Holy Land. This is a little charm that has a little rose on it, sort of an ivory colored rose. Matches the papers. Some lace. This tab has a little bit of lace and a vintage button. Here's another page from that vintage ledger. And I made this journaling card. It's a big journaling card, about 5 by 7.5, I guess. This is from a very old music book, and here's a book page of these girls having tea in the garden. This is a fabric flip, so I've used several fabrics and some vintage lace, added some hand stitches there, put a little bit of trim and added some hand stitches at the bottom, but it can be flipped for journaling front and back. I'm really proud of this bow. You know I have issues making bows. This image was fussy cut from a book. Quite a variety of different trims. Another little charm, a little pendant. Another tab with some tatting and a vintage button. Here is a paper doily, but it's rectangular. It was a little wide, so I folded it to create this tiny little pocket, and I just popped in this little tag covered in fabric with a little applique on it. Just tuck that in there. This is from a cookbook, vintage cookbook. Cupcakes, pastries, tea cakes, unusual loaf cakes. This is from that 1929 ledger. Here's another fabric covered tag with some crochet button, an applique. And I've just got this tucked into a pocket, which is, it's actually an estimate from a painter who would paint, I can't remember how much he was going to paint, but it was going to be $41. And this is a page from a catalog, a reprinted catalog. A little journaling card. So this is a reproduction of an advertisement. This is a letter from 1937. I added a tab here. This is from Mrs. Beaton's book. Little journaling card. Tucks right into this vintage hand crocheted lace. Another tag, journaling card, and a little tag slips inside the cup. This is a vintage paper bag from Davison's. I suspect Davison's was maybe a card shop. There was a receipt, a printed receipt in here for like 34 cents or something. So I added a little journaling card. This is a picture of these ladies taking tea, reading letters. This is from a typing textbook, my book on China. It's the other side of that bag. Another reproduction advertisement. Another image of a tea table and a lady coming out to have her tea in the garden. And I just fussy cut this little teacup down here. I pinned a little tiny cameo on this lace. And inside this lace pocket, I've added this journaling card. So these flowers came from a wedding bouquet, a vintage wedding bouquet. I've got a little charm here, some crochet lace, did hand stitches on here, and there's a place for journaling on the back. There's the other side of that letter. Here, another tab with a little tatted motif and a button. And this is a letter from 1905 to the Ministry of Public Works in Ottawa. I've got this photo, and it has these ladies. They're all sitting at a table having tea. There's some ladies on the back. This is from a book about cross-stitching monograms with different letters. Here's a ledger page. This is just, this was a page from a book. I just added some ink to give it some age. Also a page from my book, my China book. So it describes what is included in a tea service. I just fussy cut this little image down here of a tea tray. This is a little tag I made, and the top of the tag is this rusted bulldog clip. And inside I made this journaling card from an advertisement from an old newspaper. Here's the other side of that picture of the women and a ruffle made of fabric. And here's the other side of that tea table. The other side of that letter. I've made this little tuck spot and added this journaling tag. Both of them have vintage appliques on it. A little ad from a newspaper. This is an ad, a reproduction ad. And in the back, this is a page from a book that I backed with some paper and added some lace and a ruffle. And it's inside this tatted doily. So she's pretty full, but there's plenty of room for decoration and some journaling, that's for sure. There's lots of blank places and lots of big journaling cards to journal on. And this was all completely handmade by me. So I will be offering this junk journal for sale in my Etsy shop. So the link is below. You can go and have a look at that. And thanks so much. Let me know what you thought. This was a little new for me, but I enjoyed it, and I hope to include more textiles in future journals. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.